are more than 100 unique styles of beer, each with their own set of ingredients, process, guidelines, history, and experience. If you're a beer lover, an industry leader, or somewhere in between, a better knowledge of beer style will improve your life and your work.
Welcome to A Sense of Beer Style, essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. I'm Julia Herz.
And I'm Jeremy Storton.
We're advanced Cicerones, beer judges, home brewers, and we're excited to guide you through the vast and wonderful world of beer styles. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Sense of Beer Style. Yay, yay. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I am for every show, as you are, Jeremy, right?
Absolutely.
I know. That's why we do what we do. And that's why you're listening or watching. And this one's a great one because we're in BJCP, Beer Judge Certification Program Style Guidelines, 2021 guidelines. And we made it to smoke beer. Smoked, S-M-O-K-E-D. No, you did not smoke the beer yourself. You are drinking beer that has been influenced by smoke. And that alone is intriguing, right? There's such nuance and beauty and wonder behind these styles. And there's two actual specialty type beers within this category of smoke beer: classic style smoke beer and specialty smoke beer. And I got to say, Jeremy, that the classic style smoke beer, like I had introduction from being in the orbit of Great American Beer Festival and Alaskan Smoked Porter, which for many years, and I'm not here to say the stats or not, plus it's frozen in time, was one of the most awarded year in and year out medal winning beers on the planet. And it uses different type of wood than people normally would come across. The wine world, you're used to oak, types of oak, right? French oak, Hungarian oak, different types of cherry wood, this and that.
Yeah.
You've got in the classic smoke style, not just Alaskan smoked porter, but then you go to the other end of the spectrum of, and I have not visited, so pronounce it for me, and I will help you all learn it wrong, but that's good. You know, I say because just reading it, not having been there, Schlenkerla, right? Rausch beer. You would say?
I call it Schlenkerla.
Schlenkerla. Yes. See, mouthful.
Yeah.
And I say it somewhat kidding and being vulnerable, but like you got to get it right when you're serving at tableside and you are presenting what smoke beer can be. But just those two beers alone kind of shows you the range. And so this classic smoke style beer over the specialty smoke beer is really about smoke versions of classic beer styles. Okay, Alaskan smoked. What did I say? Porter, right? The Rausch beer is the classic German indoctrination that many of us have gone through. So it's a classic style, and we'll talk about the nuance. There's so much to say. I can't even wait. So I'm queuing that all up. Jeremy, take us through any history you want and/or ingredients to help our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, this is a great way to think about this smoked beer category because we've talked about smoked beer before. We've talked about the Rauch beers, we've talked about the Grodzickias, but those are beers that, smoke is a part of that particular style. With this style that we're talking about today, the smoked beer style, we're talking about it could be a Belgian blonde. It could be an American blonde. It could be a British blonde. It could be a brown, a porter, whatever it is. But you're thinking, you know what? Let's add a little bit of smoke to a beer that normally does not have smoke, such as you brought up, the Alaskan smoked porter. So that would be a porter, but let's add some smoke. Therefore, we have a smoked beer, right? And early on in my homebrewing journey, because I lived in a small town in the middle of Oregon that we got a lot of wildfires, I kind of thought, it'd be fun to brew a porter and add I used a 1/4 pound of Rauch malt into the mix. It gave it just a little hint of smoke, almost like you're drinking a porter around a campfire, and it was beautiful. And I'm not saying that my beer was amazing, but a beer like that with a little bit of smoke in it is kind of reminiscent of having a great beer next to a campfire. So that's where these smoked beers are fantastic. So when we're talking about these, we're talking about whatever base beer you want. whatever base beer is part of that list. Go back, watch the style cast. If it's a blonde, if it's a brown, if it's a porter, go back and watch those style casts to learn what the ingredients ought to be for that style. But whatever that style is, we're just going to add smoke to it. Now, here's where it gets fun. And this is where for all of you who are pit masters out there who are listening or watching this, I want you to chime in the comments on this one, because now we can smoke our malts with beechwood, with oak, with maple, with mesquite, with alder, with pecan, with apple, cherry, all kinds of different woods. You can use so many different woods. There's some you can't, because it does impart some compounds that are not healthy for us. So just be careful. But there's so many different woods and different characteristics that you can get from these woods, and that's where it just opens up a whole new world. So that's the ingredient list for this particular style. Let's get into how would this be different? How would the appearance be different if it were a smoke beer?
Well, it is going to be variable based on the base style.
Yeah.
So, style guidelines will really point it out where we're not quite talking about specialty smoke beer yet. I guess we can, because they both are
Yeah,
going to
let's talk
have
about both.
that same disclaimer. Generally speaking, right? Classic smoke beer will depend and be variable to reflect the base style. The specialty smoke beer, the emphasis on appearance is variable too. You just got to think, did you add fruit to that specialty smoke beer, right? Because specialty smoke beers aren't just classic styles that have influence from smoke of the malt most of the time, but they will often have fruit, or have the influence of additional type of fermentables and the like. So variable, variable, variable. And I think that is key. And you got to give yourself some allowance. So you're not going to blind taste these and look at, or forgive me, you're not going to blind judge these and look at them from across the room and go, I know exactly what beer is about to be served to me.
Yeah.
We won't be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So and when we get to aroma, again, this whole category about smoked beer and especially smoked beer, this is eh, the blanket statement we're going to make is this is one dependent on the base style. So go back and listen to that style cast so you understand the base style. Now it's going to have some smoke character. So when you smell it, it's going to have some of that smoke character. It could be from different types of wood. So this is where talk to your pitmaster friends and learn what the different woods have that what their character is like. In the term or in the case of the specialty smoked beer, maybe it's a base beer plus some smoke plus some other ingredient like vanilla. Maybe it's a smoked vanilla porter, for example. So this is where when we think about the aroma, we're thinking about that base beer and all the extra ingredients. But here's the kicker: it all should be harmonious. It all should be fairly well balanced. If it's a vanilla smoked blah 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 and you don't smell or taste any vanilla, well, okay, we could have done a little bit better job there. So just keep in mind that everything that it says on the label should be present in the aroma. How does that translate over to flavor? The same?
Yeah, it is going to be similar, and you are looking for intensity too, though. So now you're looking for balance.
Yeah.
Can it be aggressive, assertive, smoke malt, really nuanced, light, and delicate? You definitely want to get an essence. Obviously, if you're talking about classic style smoke beer and or specialty smoke beer, you need to get a sense of that smoke. And what's super fun is when you're tasting one of these to try to trace that down, right? So one thing that's fun to share is there's a history here. And so talking about Rausch beer, which falls under classic style smoke beer, there's a time frame in beer history pre 1840 and after 1840. Direct fire versus indirect fire. Let me take a moment, and this is just one of the woods that are used. And so, going back to Bamberg, Bavaria, where the actual Rausch beers originated, you've got smoked malt, right? This malt was direct fire. So you don't have enough advancement yet of that roasting drum that was invented in 1840 to to bring more nuance. You've got direct fire, and then the smoke it's literally wet malt often being dried with the fire, and the smoke is drying out that malt. It's also basically kilning it or roasting it too. And then after 1840, it was much more of a indirect and more nuanced and delicate way. So the beechwood, which you might have read, and I feel like I kind of want to see all your faces listening and watching. Like, you ever see a can of Budweiser and you see beechwood chips on there, and they make such a big deal of it, and it is a big deal. One of the most, if not the consistent beers, in our lifetimes and generations many after us. But that's not the same. That beechwood from Bamberg, very different flavor and nuance than you would get from what you're thinking about from the Budweiser. And so I would say these beers teach you about the flavor from each of those types of conditions and wood that is being used. There's, peated malt too. Peat can be influencing smoke. Think about Scottish whiskey compared to Irish whiskey. More Scottish will be that peated influence.
Hmm.
Peat's got like a smoky, earthy type of essence. That's
Yeah, it's kind of pungent.
yeah,
It's
and
strong.
it's pungent and strong. A little goes a long way. A light hand is necessary. And that's made by smoking, your malt over burning peat, which is then putting that smoky, earthy, influence to it. So anyway, the list can go on in your flavor, but you want balance. You don't want the smoke to overpower. You're looking for which type of smoke was declared, or at least malts that were smoked. And then you don't want these medicinal aspects. You can get real geeky in this topic, real chemical. Rauch malt will bring guaiacol, syringol, a smoky campfire aspect. These are chemical reactions that are occurring while the malt has been smoked. And then the Rauch, there's a Helles, right? And that Helles, my understanding is it's literally just fermented in the same fermenters that the Urbach or their other stronger beer styles are. But smoke is so there's so much drift from smoke that the Helles picks up smoke flavor, even though it wasn't directly influenced by malt that was smoked. So there's a little tidbit too. So
Yeah.
just look for balance, please. That's really important, and don't look for medicinal off flavors that would take that smoky flavor from any smoke malt to a unpleasant place.
And that explains why we smell like a campfire long after the campfire is out. So, you
Yes,
know,
I love it.
when we get to mouthfeel, thank you for that thought on flavor. There's so much there, and that's going to be a great segue to when you talk about style comparisons in just a second. So I'm going to put just a little uh, nugget in there for mouthfeel. So again, we're going to get back to what is your base beer like? That's going to be your starting point as far as mouthfeel goes. But here's the thing: when you add smoke to it, it can heighten that sense of astringency. That can heighten the sense of phenolics, which is more flavor than anything else. But you can get this um, kind of this dryness or this perception of dryness, this perception of astringency. And that can also kind of lead to a perception of maybe even bitterness too. There's just this effect that smoke can have. And it's very, very difficult to an untrained palate to decipher what is smoke and what is not. So for those of you who need to know this and are studying this, then pay close attention, and if you can, put that smoked Helles next to a Helles side by side, and try to ascertain which is which. But one thing that they should not be is it should not be harsh. It should not be aggressive. It all should be harmonious, and that is the golden rule of beers. Is it should some beers are meant to challenge in some cases, but it all should be harmonious, and it all should beg for at least a second sip, if not a second pint. Anyway, so that'll key you back up to style comparison that you kind of started heading toward.
I did, and I'm going to do a good correction. I can still catch it. And it's good to explain when I say Rausch beer, I mean, you go to classic style smoke beer under smoke beer style or category 32 for BJCP, and it is listing, right, the Urbach, and it is a Rausch beer Urbach, but dedicated Rausch beer, so I need to kind of insert this, is often the Marzen. we will
Yes.
come across that, and it has its
It's just
own.
assumed the Märzen, yeah.
Yes, it has its own dedicated style. It is so revered and so popular. It has its own style. So if you're thinking about smoke beer in the back of your brain, you're not just thinking classic style smoke beer and specialty smoke beer, but put in the back of your mind that under amber, malty, Euro lager is Rausch beer. That's really important, and that's literally listed after Marzen in the style guidelines. So with that, yes, get to know the nuance of Rausch beer, smoked malt, but dedicated Rausch Marzen, that's its own style. And then otherwise, it's such a unique style that the style guidelines always have, right? Your style comparisons. This one doesn't. It's not listing that. So it's not listing that because they are just, you already know the style comparison. You're going to take your base style. You're going to try that blind. You want a smoked IPA, American India Pale Ale? Go for it. Try a base West Coast IPA, yummy, and then try it with a smoked version in whatever that brewer intended. And then you're going to start to parse out all the differences. And then the specialty smoke beer, that's just such a kitchen sink type of thing. There's really nothing to compare it to. There really
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's helpful to think. I mean, we've talked about the Rauch beer. We've talked about the Grodziskia. Schlenkerla is kind of like saying everyone says, "Oh, I love Anchor Steam." Well, Anchor is the brewery, Steam is the beer, and so we kind of have to separate those two. Schlenkerla makes a lot of different beers, and a lot of them are smoked. When you just by default, like you said, we're just defaulting to the Märzen. But if you have a smoked Helles, it's going to be more smoky than a regular Helles, right? If you have a applewood smoked Helles, it's going to be more applewoody than the regular smoked Helles. So this is where it's really hard to just say, oh, here's how we can compare it, right? So I appreciate everything you said. This is a difficult style to pin down. Smoke is the key. Um, when we get into some of the commercial examples, Julia, you're great. You already brought a few up. The Alaskan smoked porter for the classic style smoked. It's a porter with some smoke in it. That's the whole sense of the first style. And then, of course, Fathead's Up in Smoke, Omegang Bourbon Barrel Vanilla Smoked Porter. Okay, it's a bourbon barrel aged vanilla porter. Dot dot dot. That has been smoked. So that's how you get that specialty smoked beer. And there's plenty others on this list, and there are plenty of them that are out there that are not on the list. And for all of you home brewers, I see you. I also smoked put some smoke Rauch malt into my brown ale, and it was fantastic. So go out and brew these yourselves, and it's just a lot of fun that way. But like you said, Julia, and from what I experienced, for a 5-gallon batch, I think I used a quarter pound of Rauch malt. So a little goes a long way
Yeah.
for all of you who are going to go out there and brew it. So be very judicious to begin with. Vital stats. I'm going to tap my foot on vital stats. Go back and look at your base styles. There, we don't have vital stats for smoked beers specifically. So we're just going to pass right on through that and talk about how would you approach glassware for a smoked beer?
And I'm going to pick one because it's so variable. And again, having kind of cut my teeth on Alaskan smoked porter for many years and literally been personally served by the Larsons, Jeff and Marcy Larson created Alaskan Brewing many years ago. They would bring out to Great American Beer Festival complimentary smoked and cured salmon. And so
Oh,
porter, I mean, porter's an amazing base style, and this is a beer that's a bigger porter, right? Alaskan smoked porter, 6.5%. It's not boozy, but it's got some weight to it. It's not a beer that you don't you traditionally is sold in bombers, those 22-ounce bottles, 12-ounce bottles certainly nowadays, but like you wouldn't drink 2 bombers by yourself. 5 malts, big variety, so a very complex porter. And so that alder wood, which they would use a food smoker to smoke the malt, that's the same food smoker they're using for the salmon. So they would bring it, and you'd have it with some freshly shaved, very thinly sliced, I should say, purple onions, right? That's going to bring some acidity and some tartness. And you're going to have that beer with that salmon, maybe putting not just those onions, purple onions, but some capers, which will bring some dill flavors, some definite salinity and salt. I actually love capers. Capers are like the proper thing that pickles never they'll never get to be even when they grow
Yep.
up. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And you put it on a cracker, and then the porter is going to become some of that bread base for the salmon, because whatever cracker you're going to put it on or bread is hopefully very mild and not domineering. It's more of a vehicle for your salmon. And I just think that that porter becomes almost like a sauce over the salmon, almost like a syrup over the salmon. And then you've got those links and bridges that I always talk about in the smoke malt, in the porter, finding its way to the smoked and cured salmon.
Yeah. I just want to clarify this real quick. When we're talking about glassware and even temperature, go back to your base style. But more importantly, back
Oh,
to the food.
Jeremy is so polite. I jumped ahead to pairing. I was so
No,
excited
that's
about it.
okay. That's where I'd rather go
We
anyway. Any
have an
day,
order
all
in the
day.
show, y'all. If you listen, you know, and hold me accountable. Jeremy, I love it. I totally jumped to pairing. And so I guess Jeremy's going to do glass and temp, and then I want to hear your pairing.
Yeah, glass and temp, we got it. Base style. Go back to your base style for that
Yes,
one.
yes.
And pairings. This is a fun one because think about when you're sitting around. As we are recording this, we are heading into fall, and someday out in the future, it will be cold, and we'll be sitting around a campfire, and hopefully you have a beer in your hand. What are you hungry for? That is the simplest way to think about what goes with my beer and what goes with the smoke. When I think about smoke, how it's almost like salt and pepper. It's like a seasoning on this experience, and that experience, I love that sweet and savory of of just like really good meat, that smoked meat type of thing. It could be grilled veggies, it could be popcorn, it could be s'mores. Anything that I enjoy sitting around a campfire. We don't need the campfire. You just need a smoke beer, and voila, you've got the experience all ready to go. So that's just my real blanket kind of chicken statement, or kind of get out of jail free kind of statement, where I'm not going to give you any pairings that I love because it's so variable. But that's my key: is what do you want to eat when you're at a campfire drinking a beer? So that's I'm sticking to that one.
Yep. So find these beers, definitely brew them. I mean, this is one of those hook you in style categories that then you go down the rabbit hole of, oh wait, I haven't had the actual traditional Rauschbier Marzen. Oh wait, what do you mean? There's all these styles within this that could be Bach, Doppelbock, Weissbach, Dunkelweiss, Schwarzbier, Munich Helles, Smoke Pilsners. The list goes on and on. So it's such a fun style, and hopefully you're even more inspired to get to know it after listening and watching the show today.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to A Sense of Beer Style, the essential beer style training for those who want to lead in food and beverage. With advanced Cicerones, me, Julia,
and me, Jeremy.
Tune into the next episode as we continue exploring the world of beer styles and what to make of them. We encourage you to listen to the prepisodes to build your foundation and better understand beer styles.
And before the next episode, I'd like to ask you to review the show and let us know what you'd like featured in upcoming episodes. Until next time, here's to you and your sense of beer style. Thank you for listening. Cheers.